On December 17th, 1903, Orville Wright took flight in the plane he built with his brother, becoming the first human in history to achieve the marvel of flight. Or was he? In 1849, an English engineer by the name of Sir George Cayley designed and built a full-size triplane glider, but it struggled to carry heavier weights. Certain in the rigidity of his creation, he scooped up a local unnamed 10-year-old boy, strapped him in, and pushed him off a hill. The glider carried the boy several yards through the air, a notable achievement but not nearly far enough to cover the distance of his hairline. In any case, you could classify Cayley's experiments as flight, since it was controlled movement through the air. And in the end, the boy did land safely, according to Cayley. Even further back in history, you have the sort of Willy Wonka era of flight.
Hold on tight. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen.
Where you got this guy who strapped people to kites, or the guy who definitely survived jumping off the Eiffel Tower in a big cone suit, or this guy who forgot that wax and heat should only be combined in the bedroom. But little did these innovators know that in the year 2019 the game would be changed forever, which brings us a smooth transition into... Yeah, so I'm not really sure where to go with this. I think I might just say like chapter 1 post-prelude. Yeah. This story starts in my junior year of college. I applied to be part of a senior design project tasked with building a remote control plane to fly in a national competition. That sounds fun, I thought, foreshadowing a future ironic turn of events.
Go look at my homework. Do you want to switch teams?
I was accepted into the role of
Wings Team Captain.
I met the captains of the controls team and the fuselage team, and we started our research by opening the PDF of the competition rulebook. My god, it's 64 pages? There's graphs? Equations? Alright, let's bring it back. I'm gonna have to... The competition is meant to emulate the colonization of a planet. The team's plane takes off from a runway and circles back over an airfield. To prep the colony, we have to drop payloads of water bottles or supplies, as well as foam footballs called habitats. You have to land as many payloads as close as possible to a target on the airfield. And while the equations for scoring are complicated, it essentially boils down to more stuff equals more points. There's other stuff, but apparently this troglodyte forgot there's other stuff here to talk about. Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, that's really nice. Can we just keep this going, please? Thank you. In addition to the other payloads, the aircraft has to carry and deploy an additional aircraft, a glider, that can only be controlled autonomously. Within the glider are the colonists, represented by ping pong balls. The team could design the plane and the glider however they wished, but we had a problem. Since all members of our team didn't know a thing about planes, we were doing this from scratch. It's June 2019. James Holzhauer's Jeopardy streak has recently come to an end. Homelessness is rising in Los Angeles, and I have begun my transition into the role of
Wings Team Captain.
Following suit of the team the year prior, we divide the project into 4 phases and spend the rest of the summer taking care of promotion, fundraising, and organizing our... Alright, so I'm going to take some creative liberties here. I don't really want to explain all the sort of nuance, like background research and the concept selection and all that stuff. I don't think that's going to be interesting at all, so I'm just going to jump right into the action and try to help. I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't know why I'm making this video. We went with a design based around a core structure of balsa wood, similar to this kit I found on Amazon. Using supports and stringers, you can connect a series of airfoils to make a skeleton for the structure, which you can then wrap in a film to get a wing that's aerodynamic and lightweight. Okay, the supports and the stringers are simple enough, But what is this thing here? And how did it become the most headache-inducing nightmare of any project I've ever worked on? Alright, that was pretty weird. Anyways, let's talk about how an airfoil works. An airfoil is a cross-sectional shape of a wing that's responsible for generating lift, but how does it do that? Imagine two groups of particles traveling towards this airfoil. Group 1 is going to go under the airfoil, and you can see that they pass by with relative ease and very little change to their properties. But what happens to Group 2? They travel along, and all of a sudden when they get to the tip of the airfoil, they violently change direction, accelerating over the contour of the surface. Now, according to Bernoulli's equation, that increase in velocity is going to result in a lower pressure on top of the wing, resulting in lift. But how does that make sense? Sure, I can see in the equation that an increase in one necessitates a decrease in the other, but let's go a level deeper to try and understand the physical cause of that effect. Now, imagine you had 100 kids in an empty, walled room. And you said, okay, everyone, I want you to run around this room as fast as you possibly can. What would happen? You'd have kids bumping into the walls, into each other with extraordinary power. It would be pretty awesome. Now, if you took that same group of 100 kids and you said, okay, everybody, with the same energy that you had running around that room, I want you to run down this path. Now, they'd still bump into each other, but it's not going to be as frequent or as powerful as before because their energy is now focused down a certain direction. That jostling of the kids can be equated to the static pressure of a fluid, the pressure that particles feel against each other. Particles like atoms and molecules have a set amount of energy. When forced into a higher velocity, it needs to use some of that energy to accelerate and maintain that velocity, which means they don't have as much energy to exert pressure on each other. This gives us a low pressure on top of the airfoil and a higher pressure on the bottom, also called a pressure differential. That pressure differential pushes upward on the wing and you have flight. At least, that's the most popular incorrect theory.
Alright, let's take it from the top again.
Now, I truly believed what I was saying in those clips. I did do my best to research for this video, but I was lazy and I let some things slip through the cracks. And while pressure differentials due to airspeed do contribute to the lift force, it's erroneous to say that it's the star of the show. The top contributor to the lift force is actually turning flow. NASA has a Java applet that actually lets you play around with this idea. You can see here we have some streamlines running past a flat plate. If we take this flat plate and adjust its angle of attack so that it's pointing slightly up, pay attention to what's happening on the bottom. The fluid turns here and the direction of the velocity changes, exerting a force on the body above it. And that's it. Yeah, today's episode was brought to you by Occam's Razor. Equipped with a simple understanding of the mechanics, my team needed to select a design for our airfoil. However, there are an infinite number of shapes you can make an airfoil, and over 1,600 standardized ones that you can find online. We simply couldn't test every one to find the best solution. Being engineers, we were simply flabbergasted that we had a problem that couldn't be solved by plugging numbers into an equation. So, our best hope was to just pick one, and verify that it would perform as required. And this is how we found our saving grace, our Brendan Fraser, our Liam Neeson to the project, was the Clark Y airfoil. The golden standard amongst RC hobbyists, the Goldilocks porridge of all RC airfoils. But engineering is so much more than just copy-pasting another person's work. We needed to numerically prove that we were going to be successful. And to do that, we're going to need a bit more math. Let's start with the lift force equation, which you can see is a function of the coefficient of lift, the density of the fluid that we're traveling through, which in this case is air, the velocity of the aircraft, and the surface area of the wing that's generating the lift. We want our lift force to be equal to the weight of the plane so we can solve the rest of the equation to determine our takeoff speed. If the motor and the propeller that we select can achieve that speed, we can be confident our plane will lift off. Now we had a rough estimate of how heavy the plane was going to be. Density of air is known, our wing surface area was roughly known, so now we just have the coefficient of lift to solve for, which is a property of the airfoil and a horrifically complex part of aerodynamics. One of the only ways we were able to estimate it was through simulations with an archaic but incredibly sophisticated software called Xfoil. But it requires velocity for an input. So now we have two equations, two unknowns, but no idea how they relate to each other. This became such a problem that the captain of the controls team insisted I use some goofy integral equation to solve for the lift coefficient, but the bounds were impossible to define, and so I made this whole nonsensical skit earlier simply to say, Brendan, that integral was never the solution.
Get out of here. This is your foolish way.
Our best hope was to make an initial guess for the takeoff speed, plug it into Xfoil, get the resulting coefficient of lift, plug that back into the lift force equation, get a new velocity for the takeoff speed, and then repeat the process. And just hope that it converges. Which, after a few iterations, it actually did. We got results. Now, could we have avoided this whole problem if we just assumed an envisaged solution? Was there an easier way to solve this? Damn. Okay, let's take a step back for a second. The airfoil was a microscopic element in the design process for the wings team. We also had to make design choices on the things like the wing shape, and the empennage structure, and the aileron attachment, and what materials we were going to use. Each design choice having its own setbacks and hurdles and epiphanies. It took months and months of hard and dedicated work from every single member on the team, but finally, in October, we had our final prototype design. And while the balsa wood plane from the kit was nice, we were going to an international competition against some of the best of the best. If we were going to do this, we were going to have to go big. Nine feet. According to the measureofthings.com, 9 feet is about 1.2 times the size of Andre the Giant, or 2 times the size of Danny DeVito, or 1/40,000th the size of the English Channel. 9 feet was also the final wingspan of our designed plane, right at the upper limit of what was allowed in the competition rulebook. It's late October. We don't even have the materials for the build, and we need to fly before the end of the semester in mid-December, or we don't pass senior design, we don't go to competition, and we don't get our degrees. This was one of the most stressful months of my life. Everything had to go to plan, or we'd be destined for the life of fifth-year engineers spending their free time farming sympathy on our engineering students. No way! We did it! Oh my god! Yo, dude! Yes! 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 Oh my god! Dude! Yes! Yes! Oh, Alex, you're the magician! You're the magician! We did it. The plane took off and landed without a hitch. It was just off to the races now. We presented the final design and the story of our project to not only the faculty who were grading us, but parents of students and underclassmen who were cheering us on the whole way. It was standing room only. People were lining up outside the door of this room just to hear how it went. And the ovation was just outstanding. It was unreal. And everything was going our way. Alright, Brendan.
Please stop.
Morale. It's Derek Morale. Yeah.
If you're watching this in 2021, just drop out. Just don't do it.
Kyle, thoughts? Oof. Alex? Send it. Whoa, whoa. Oh my god. Alright, let's do it.
Successful flights already. Successful, but not. Oh, I hate that. Oh man. Bad. After this, Sefri puts it down. Then it would be able to like actually. I pull up over here. I got nothing.
Hi. It's been a while. Last time I put something into this video was several months. Because I didn't really know where to go off from that. I'd be hard pressed to find a way to somehow explain the pain of losing something that you put so much work into in a matter of seconds. It was terrible. It was one of the worst moments of my college career. There was high tension between all the team members. We were so distraught and angry, and we wanted someone to be angry at. And it just led to a horrible amalgamation of yelling and pain and just destruction from inside. It was awful. But through the frustration and anger that came with losing the plane, there was still a glint of hope. In the presentation that I talked about earlier, some of the people in attendance were underclassmen. And those same underclassmen were moved enough by the presentation that they wanted to join the club too. And through that was ushered a future generation that was ready and excited to take on the challenge themselves. And we were able to pass on that knowledge through our failure to that future generation. What worked, what didn't work, what resources they might need, the stuff that would have been invaluable to us at the beginning of our journey. And we were able to just give them that and let them run with it. And they did great. And it wasn't until I saw the next year's plane fly that I came to a full and complete realization that, looking back, I don't really see the pain or failure as vividly as I used to. Looking back, I see a room full of people waiting with bated breath to hear about our plane. I see the face of an underclassman coming into our assembly room and gazing in awe, seeing the fire of curiosity burning inside of him. Engineers don't just make things, or gadgets, or whatever else is in between. Engineers make inspiration. And if you take nothing else away from this video, I hope it's that. Just 3 days before Orville Wright's flight at Kittatinny Beach, his brother Wilbur took a shot at flying the aircraft himself, where he subsequently crash-landed into the sand. Greatness is always preceded by failure. Without failure, without error, there are no engineers. Humans are terrible at getting things right the first time, but we're the best at always putting our heads back up and trying again. Thanks for watching.